But I don't think NHS England has met its targets for A&E waiting times, cancer care and hospital appointments since 2015. And it was the slowest period of investment in the NHS in its history. But you still, I think, defend austerity as an agenda. Can you give that defence to me?
Yes, I mean, as a cabinet minister, I have to accept collective responsibility. I was part of the cabinet that came into power, coalition government, in 2010. And we faced the biggest financial crisis since the Second World War, and we needed to make difficult cuts. And I do defend the decision in its entirety. The NHS budget was frozen, not cut, but I do defend the decision in its entirety because the result of getting the economy back on its feet was that we were then able to afford a record increase for the NHS in 2018. Not that I would ever pretend there was anything other than a lot of pain for the NHS until that point. But if I look at the individual cuts under that umbrella, the one that I think went too far was social care. I think it was a silent killer, because what happened was when you cut the money for social care going to local authorities, no individual has their package cut, but the local authority just doesn't provide new packages for as many people or as generous a level as it would otherwise have done. And so people don't really notice that. But when I was health secretary and I was seeing our hospitals filling up because we couldn't get people out into the community, I realised just how dangerous that was. And indeed, around that time, I also became responsible for social care as well. And that's why one of the first things I did as Select Committee Chair was to do a report on social care, where we said the government needs to increase the funding for social care by £7 billion a year by the end of the Parliament. It's actually going to go up by £2 billion a year, so I'm afraid we're a long way off what I think it needs.
I was going to ask you that, how well you think the government now is tackling that silent killer that you mentioned.
I hope it doesn't take as long for the penny to drop with Sajid Javid as it did for me, because if he's battling with, this is not the only reason to do it, it should be done in its own right, but if you are battling to get flow through hospitals so that people can arrive at an A&E, be treated and then be sent home quickly, then the social care is a really essential part of that mix. And so I am disappointed we haven't made further progress on social care. I welcome the fact that there's going to be a cap. I think there's a group of people who have catastrophic care costs that will be helped by that. My inner conservative is disappointed that we're not also putting in place a tax incentive for people to save for their own social care alongside their pension, because I think in the long run the structures we have will lead to a very big expansion of the state and therefore the tax base, when we should be encouraging people who can to save for their own care costs. But most importantly and crucially, we are not yet giving local authorities enough for them to be able to meet their statutory needs, and I think that is out of step with where most British people are, where we would want to look after our most vulnerable citizens with all the dignity and respect they deserve.
And having been in that position yourself, perhaps you have an insight into why it is taking some time for the penny to drop, that this is such a fundamental issue.
I think that you can look at what's happened and point to events that have some responsibility. I know everyone wants to blame politicians, but for example, Theresa May and Philip Hammond said to me, we'll do the social care system later this year. This was in the summer of 2018, or they didn't say that personally, but their team said we'll do that later in the year. I was then moved to the Foreign Office. Her government fell. We had the Brexit wars. And then when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister after the 2019 election, we had the pandemic for 2 years. So it's been a very choppy, difficult period in British politics. But now the pandemic is largely behind us. I really think it's the moment. I use the phrase in my book, a 1948 moment. That was the year the NHS was founded. It's the time we want to be putting long-term solutions in place. You know, in the NHS's case, to move away from a targets culture, which I think is very destructive to safe, high-quality patient care, but put in place a long-term plan for the social care system. I mean, it's not just money, but it's really simple things and important things. Like in Denmark, they have a policy that says we don't want to open any new care homes because we think people want to stay at home, and with technology and support, it can be not just more humane, but also cheaper to keep people at home with support. Now, that's not nursing care where you might need to go to a nursing home, but residential care homes. Now, we have made a decision about that, but if we did, we would be able to direct private sector investment into the parts of the market that we most want to expand. And I think it's those kinds of decisions that are kept in limbo when you don't have a long-term plan.